honesty. I also note that in response to one of my speeches in the Parliament on Monday, Senator Sinodinos said that the decision on climate has to be a no-regrets decision. In other words, it implicitly means they don't really know, but they want to make a decision that they have no regrets. So if I'm right, as he said, it doesn't matter, it's just money wasted. If I'm wrong, then they're going to save the planet. Senator Sinodinos then said, we need to do something, and if there's no problem, there's no damage. If there is a problem, well, they'll prevent the damage. So the chief scientist has not provided any evidence in response to my requests. He came back in writing. He has not presented any evidence that we are affecting climate at all. Dr. Karl has refused to debate me last Sunday after 3 months ago agreeing to debate me. He says we can't find common ground. So with those in mind, and the fact that no one will debate me, I'm going to open pretty soon this evening with a presentation on the data, the physical evidence, the physical observations, the measured data, because that is the ultimate decider of science. Everyone knows that. And that's the beauty of science, it's objective. So we know that the debate must come down always to a debate on the data. And that's never happened in this country, never. I'm going to keep my comments short. I don't think there's any... Oh, I just want to say that despite the fact that we've never had a debate on the climate science, never, have always relied on consensus and appeals to authority. That's not a debate on science. That's a political discussion. Here are some of the facts. We've spent $10 billion on desalination plants. $10 billion. One of them is being used, the rest are mothballed. Because of scientists, academics, funded by the government, getting their money from the government at the time, recommending that we are going to enter into an endless drought. $10 billion wasted. The Brisbane floods cost $440 million in infrastructure alone and several billion in total. And that could have been avoided if we had not listened to some academics receiving money from the government who said that we needed to store more water. We've got intermittent energy. Some people call it renewable. We call it intermittence. At 50% renewable energy target, Queensland alone, it'll cost $27 billion. That commitment's already been made by the current government. The fishing industry, in a related series of events, has been decimated in this country. We have the largest fishing zone in the world by some measures, and we have the largest by a long, long way per capita. We are an island continent, and yet we import almost 3/4 of the seafood we eat. We have a tiny population to feed. Where do we get most of our seafood from, Alistair? China and Thailand. China is the #1 exporter into our country, and Thailand is second. And China has 60 times the population we have. Thailand has about 3 times the population. So the UN claims we're going to be overfished. And yet the world's largest economy, the largest country population-wise, is sending fish to us. Because we have 33% of the world's marine parks locked up through UN regulations. That's what's killed our fishing industry. And it's the same people who are driving the climate claims who are driving the destruction of the fishing industry. The Great Barrier Reef has been talked down repeatedly around the world as dying. It's very, very healthy. They've had, I think, 16 bleaching events in the last 28 years that they know of. Sorry, since 1928. We had a major bleaching event in southern Barrier Reef in the record cold winter of 2008. Bleaching is entirely natural and normal. We have vegetation laws based on climate fears and a Kyoto requirements that have stripped land from billions of dollars worth of property rights from farmers across the country by a Liberal Prime Minister, where property rights are sacrosanct. And we've had real victims from climate change. The UN forecast, I think in 2005, 2005 that by 2010 we would have 50 million climate refugees from sea levels. Do you know how many we've had? 0. The real victims are the people who've paid higher energy costs, and now our energy prices in Queensland are double what they were just a few years ago. Double. And still increasing. Increasing dramatically because of a renewable energy market that is really a renewable energy racket. We've had unnecessary blackouts. We've had people who've lost jobs, and the jobs go overseas where they produce electricity at a far lower cost using our coal, and they sometimes use coal from their own sources burned in old power stations that increase real pollutions like particulates, sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxides. So we're actually worsening the real pollution around the world by shutting down Australian industry. And everyone has higher costs of living and higher prices. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Leon Ashby, who works in our office, and he has been a farmer, and he's going to introduce the evening and introduce Peter Bobroff.
Yeah, thanks very much, Malcolm. For those of you who don't know me, I work in Malcolm's office and attend to whatever needs to happen in the day, and we have quite a bit of fun. And this is sort of one of those events that this is our third one that we've held, and each time we're trying to get the message out to the community that the science is what we're about, understanding the evidence that supports our point of view. And so tonight we're going to be going through that with Peter Bobroff. And just to give you a bit of an introduction about Peter's history, he's been a midshipman in the frigate HMS Derwent. He's he's also been designed and built a car registered in the UK. He's modified software on an anti-submarine system. He's a naturalist, practical conservationist, astronomer who's authored one of the best star atlases available. And also he's got a science degree from London University, and he's done a lot of stuff on climate, I think about 3 or 4 major climate databases. He's got an Order of Australia Medal for services to research into combat data systems, and he's produced a database on the electricity grid which has captured the 5-minute dispatch data from every grid-connected generator since 2014 with prices and demand, and is still updated daily. So you can see he's a bit of a nerd. So I'll just hand over to Peter now, but before we do that, I'm just going to ask for people on Facebook if they can ask some questions and sort of put them into us. And yeah, right closer. Is that better? Too close. Okay, righto. Okay, the agenda is that Peter will go through the data on various issues of levels of temperature, CO2 levels, how they relate, and associated issues. He'll also have Howard Brady putting in some also some more data, and also Bill Johnston. They'll be different. They'll all be related, but they've all got different areas of expertise. So they'll be speaking a little bit later, but I'll now hand it over to Peter.